report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
New Schools for New Orleans is committed to celebrating the hardworking teachers of New Orleans. Thank you to all the educators who came out to the 4th annual NOLA Teacher Fest at Champion Square. We had over 2,000 attendees. Special thank you to our sponsors, Allstate Sugar Bowl, Entergy New Orleans, Raising Cane's, Align Ed New Orleans, Agenda for Children, and Oshner Children's for their commitment and support. Teachers and school leaders, enjoy the summer break.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. Today marks 5 years since Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd. The former police officer was charged with second-degree murder and sentenced to a little more than 22 years in prison. 5 years after Floyd's death, we're hearing talks that President Trump plans to pardon Derek Chauvin. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara addressed the speculations.
There is absolutely no credible information we have to suggest that's going to happen.
D'Angelo fans hoping to catch him at the annual Roots Picnic next weekend are out of luck. The R&B artist dropped out of the festival due to, quote, longer than expected surgical recovery, end quote. Maxwell will replace D'Angelo at the Roots Picnic at the Man in Philadelphia. And today, actress Octavia Spencer is 53 years old. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Good morning, New Orleans. Wake up, New Orleans. Happy Monday, happy. I guess is it Happy Memorial Day? I don't know. We're just here. It's Memorial Day. I'm certain a lot of folk are not on the roadways going to work as they would on any other day. But today is a holiday, so the roads were pretty light. But nevertheless, happy Monday. Welcome to the start of another week. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer, Nyron Sanders.
I ran in the house.
And my co-pilot this morning, Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, New Orleans.
It is Monday. So listen, first things first, I want to give a shout out to Councilman Freddie King. He held his annual District C Crawfish Cook-Off at Federal City, which is the old naval base to West Bank folk, at Federal City, and it was quite a time. I know simultaneously Landry was doing, Lloyd Beaconsfield Landry, they were doing an alumni event at the actual school site, but right down the road at Federal City, Councilman Freddie King was hosting his annual crawfish cook-off, and yes, it was packed. There were people everywhere, crawfish everywhere. It was a time. There were 4 judges. I was one of them. I don't know if those other people want y'all to know they was judges. Since some people didn't win, I don't want to throw my people out there. They'd be like, why you talking? I don't know. It was 4 of us. I was one of them. And let me tell you something. You know the person who won had to win because he went to Oliver Perry Walker. Oh. So, I mean, I wouldn't have willingly done that. So it had to be the right thing to do. I was just joking. Shout out to the winner of Councilman Freddie King's annual District C Crawfish Cook-Off. Matter of fact, I think 2 teams from Walker won. I think the top prize went to Oliver Perry Walker. 1 team from them, it was best crawfish and best sides. He actually won both categories. And then another Walker team won, I think, 2nd place overall. So it was, and the trophy was really nice. It was a boiling pot, and like it had a little thing on it to identify you as the winner. It was really nice. DJ Jubilee, my birthday twin, was the DJ. There were folk from, all across, primarily the West Bank that I noticed with their crawfish. So it was quite a time. Shout out to Councilman Freddie King. It was quite a time. And I mean, you have to go to things like that to see Councilman Freddie King kind of dressed down and looking like just, that he's just out enjoying the day. Because any other day he's in a full suit and you don't get to see him. Yeah. And I don't know if I saw Omega Sci-Fi boots on him, but I feel like I saw. I feel like that's what I think I saw, but I know I did not. But it was a time. So shout out to Councilman Freddie King for his annual District C Crawfish Cook-Off. It really was quite the success.
Well,
But,
I heard from people who don't live in Algiers who,
well, no, they had
who
some
traveled on over
non-Algerians.
and had a good time.
Yeah,
Had a good time.
They did, but I'm talking about like the folk who are actually balling.
Yeah,
A lot of them I
right,
saw are
yeah.
from Algiers, from the West Bank. I think he got them out of his district, so maybe they had some folk come from the other side. But it was really nice. There was like some it's like slushy type stuff. It was so many different. It was a nice family friendly event. It was just hot, but other than that, it was really, really well put together, really well attended, really nice. So again, shout out to the councilman out of Algiers for that. But as I don't know
It
if you
was
were
hot.
affected, I was affected.
Absolutely.
My power went out. I mean,
Absolutely. It was crazy. And
yeah.
I at the point that the power went out, I was actually visiting my 94-year-old dad.
And the power went out on.
Okay.
Daddy?
So this is just one person experience. So my dad has limited leg mobility, so we have to help him out of the chair. And
Mhm.
well, he's got this great big old, very comfortable, lazy boy kind of chair
As he should. He 94. Mm-hmm.
with all kinds of move it this
As
way
he
and
should.
that way.
It should massage and everything.
That's right.
Mhm.
All of that. He's got
Mhm.
all that. Except it's electric.
Oh.
So his seat was back.
And the power
and
went
his,
out.
and his feet were up. And it was time to go. So had to improvise.
Yeah. And they are
to-
heavy. They
Yes.
are heavy. Yeah.
Yep. And so that's just a personal situation, but there are a lot of people when the power goes out, their lives are interrupted.
Yeah.
People with oxygen, people who are bedridden, people who
Medicine
are,
that should be
are- are
refrigerated.
Yep. Well, I have a sister who had just done the weekly shopping.
I hope the power didn't stay out too long
It was
for
out.
her. Oh, yes. That happened to
was
me one
out,
time close
you
to a
know,
hurricane.
so-
I had just gotten a bunch of groceries, and it was just, yeah, it's unfortunate. And I mean, let's talk about it because folk were saying it was a rolling blackout. One of the commissioners got on and said that it was in part due to something called load shedding. And according to Entergy, it is to alleviate the capacity. On
Right.
it says Entergy New Orleans is currently subject to a load shed order from MISO. Approximately 52,000 customers are impacted or were impacted. It said our crews.
That was in the early stage.
Yep. Our crews will work as quickly and safely as possible to restore service as soon as we are clear to do so. Estimated time of restoration is unclear at this time, pending further updates from MISO. Now, this was one of their original updates as it was happening. It says MISO comprises a pool of electricity generators and uses that stretches from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. And as reliability coordinator is responsible for monitoring the portion of the electric grid it oversees and providing instructions to its members regarding actions needed to maintain reliability in that portion of the grid. In extreme circumstances, such actions may include these types of that are currently occurring. And it says City Council President and Utility Committee Chair J.P. Morrell, Council Vice President and Climate and Sustainability Chair Helena Moreno, and Public Service Commissioner for District D. Devontae Lewis issued a statement on the outage. And I don't know if this is a collective statement, but it's just one statement. And it says
That's right.
tonight,
Yeah.
the Regional Transmission Organization, MISO, ordered an immediate forced large-scale outage within the Entergy boundary or territory, leaving the utility with minimal notice. Customers in Orleans, Jefferson, Plaquemines, and St. Bernard parishes were affected. With the majority of impacts felt in New Orleans, we are not only frustrated by the lack of timely notification to both the utility and regulators, as it appears that New Orleans bore the brunt of the forced outage. Are you surprised? The public deserves clear answers regarding the reasons behind the incident and the failure to provide timely alerts. We are urgently working to uncover the facts as power restoration efforts begin.
Right.
So,
Right, yeah.
is this acceptable to do without a notice? Because if it was an orchestrated alleviation of the capacity, then you knew you were going to do it. So why couldn't the customers know that you were going to do it? Even if it's a 30-minute head start,
Mhm.
what was the reason to not inform the public?
Right, right. And Devontae Lewis, who's the Public Service Commissioner for District 3, who represents a large swath of Louisiana, which includes New Orleans and Jefferson Parish, he was on social media yesterday blasting this outage and without notice. And, keep in mind the Public Service Commission regulates electricity and power in the state of Louisiana, and there are districts that they represent. So he was quite upset about what happened, and separately from the joint statement with City Council President J.P. Morrell and the Council Vice President Helena Moreno, he said in a post last night that I have been briefed on the massive outages in New Orleans, Jefferson, and the North Shore. This is a load shed outage by our regional transmission organization. A generator tripped, and there wasn't enough energy to meet the demand, so forced outages were ordered. And so he was on top of this throughout the outage, but also calling for an investigation because of exactly what you said. If you know, why can't you tell people so that they can be prepared? Even if we had 30, 40 minutes notice, it'd be better than it just happening if this is a load shed, a planned outage to prevent something worse.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally the only point that I had, because we had zero notice that it was going to happen. And I wasn't home when the power went out, but I was able to see on my phone that I did not have power at my home. And my mother lives pretty close to me, so she didn't have power either. And so it's just, I mean, it's unfortunate and it's inconvenient. But then how do you also, too, think about compensating folk for this? Because some folks' power, is out much longer than others. Maybe food was compromised, medication was compromised. Even how do you adjust billing? Like, what do you do in the instance when that happens? Or are customers supposed to just eat the inconvenience of it all? So, I mean, that's to me is the question in an already struggling city where all resources are much needed resources. So I don't have the luxury of spending something and then I can't get the full use out of it because my power isn't reliable enough to either stay on when I need it most or give us a heads up to know it was going on so we can make some sort of arrangement. Because you could ice your stuff down to hold it, try to preserve it as long as you could, because you don't have a real understanding of how long it will be out. But we covered this idea of the Entergy, but as it relates to the gas portion of it, Delta Utilities is set to take over a large portion of customers who are gas customers in the city. And I know back in December we talked about this story because it says it was the council was backing Entergy sale of the gas service to private equity firm Delta Utilities, which is the family of Katie Bernhardt, who is the former chair of the Democratic Party for the state. And I just thought I was a bit confusion on this whole story because it said the company has zero customers. They were not in the Entergy business or energy business. And they were going to go from, once this deal was brokered, they were going to go from zero to customers to over 1 million customers instantly. And it says opponents of the sale criticized the timing of the approval and said it would be an economic burden on residents and disrupt the city's efforts to achieve zero emissions. That was back in December. But as of today, I'm sure that there are, if they've not brokered the deal already, they're very close to finalizing the deal to sell. It's a $484 million sale of Entergy's gas utilities in Louisiana, which serves over 200,000 customers over the New Orleans and Baton Rouge area. That's just in our area. And they said Tim Poche is the CEO of Delta Utilities. At that time, he told Verite News that it heats, natural gas is a very resilient fuel. It heats our homes. We use it to cook with. It's a fuel that's used in times of emergency. We look forward to providing that service in a regulated environment and serving our customers. So that is Bernhardt Capital Partners, the Baton Rouge private equity firm behind Delta Utilities, is led by Jim Bernhardt, a former state Democratic Party chair and prolific political campaign donor.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best part of the sentence right there, because if you know, you know.
Right.
Shout out to Morris Bart. But yeah, I think that this is another incident, another instance, I should say, where to me the public wasn't well informed. I didn't start hearing about this until it was already like supposed to be a done deal.
Darn close to done.
Yeah, I didn't hear about it, and by the time I started reporting on it here, this was already like a fast moving train.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think at that point, I know there were folk who opposed it, but I don't think by and large the whole community or the majority of the community really understood, what was happening until it was already happening. And so this thing is already happening.
Well, I'm pretty sure there are people who weren't aware or forgot about it until you just mentioned it.
Yeah, no, because
until you just mentioned it.
and I mean, and the reason why I thought about it was because of this incident, and it kind of put the whole idea of energy on my brain. So I'm like, I remember a story where they were talking about the gas portion, because how you were saying it's electric. So people who I know, my house is powered that way too. And while I do see some of the pros of it, there are a whole lot of cons about this too, for a number of reasons. Not talking about their ability to actually do it. I'm talking about how the deal was brokered, who these people are in relation to politics. All of those kinds of questions to me were important.
Yeah.
And especially when it's a contract of this magnitude. That's almost a $500 million thing, already. Like from I don't know if that's the valuation of it, but that's what it's saying. It's $484 million sale. It's a lot of millions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of zeros.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
And so to me, I just think that when you hear about this load shedding happening and there was zero communication, and it doesn't seem like the council even knew this was happening, because I see they have a lot of questions. The commissioner has a lot of questions. So
Well, and most recently, timing has got a lot of attention with the jailbreak. Well, what happened at this time, at this time, at this time? So in this case, when did MISO identify energy to say this has happened, this is happening, this will happen within 3 hours or 6 hours? I mean,
See,
where's the gap?
That's all I ever want. All I ever want is protocol, policies, the standard. If folk are not doing their job according to either the homeroom charter, according to whatever their roles and responsibilities call for, and the city relies on the service, and them dropping the ball disrupt city services, I think everybody should be made to answer to timelines and protocols and policies, or however that should look. Because I think it's unacceptable to have folks power out with zero notice and then barely any real explanation or understanding of how this could happen without informing the public. So you just take it up on yourself to just turn our power off at your leisure. So that doesn't make me feel secure in understanding how anything actually works for the city.
Right. And Energy is saying not our fault. They're saying we were directed. We are part of this system, the Mid-Continent Internet Independent System Operator. And so as a reliability, accountability partner, that's what we agree
I mean, you can be instructed, but you still owe the public
that's right.
transparency.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, I'm not saying it's your fault. What I'm saying is we deserved a heads up.
Right.
And that's just the bottom line. And I want to know, when were you informed, and then when, how much time lapsed between you being informed and our power actually being shut off.
Right.
So
I think we all can understand that nobody wants to be without power for hours, days, weeks
Well, the way this
at a
heat is
time.
set up, you don't want to be without power
but-
for 5 minutes.
Right, but we here have experienced that. We know how it feels, and we wouldn't wish that on other people in the central United States, wherever that MISO covers. But we can get that, but we want to have notice about interruptions.
Yeah, I agree. We have to go to break, y'all, so we can hear a word from our sponsors. But when we come back, there have been additional updates to the jailbreak, and we're going to discuss it right here. WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about
all day long.
Good morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. Yesterday, a massive, sweeping power outage left thousands of you in the dark from the South Shore to the North Shore. The outages impacted thousands during the Memorial Day holiday weekend and left many in the heat. More than 100,000 Cleco and Entergy customers were impacted. In a statement, Entergy says the wide threat outages were caused by what's called a load shed, which means it was a last resort forced by the transmission center that manages the power grid in order to prevent a more extensive power outage that could affect its reliability. The outages lasted at least 5 to 6 hours. This morning, there are 3 more people waking up behind bars, accused of helping the inmates who escaped from the Orleans Parish Jail 11 days ago. Jail records showed the weekend arrests of 27-year-old Tashia Randolph and 18-year-old Patricia Van Buren, both charged with accessory after the fact and both being held on a $1 million bond. Lanika Van Buren, who shares the same last name as escapee Linton Van Buren, was arrested on Sunday and charged with violation of probation. 9 others have been arrested, accused of helping the men who broke out. And we're learning more on exactly how the 10 inmates escaped the Orleans Parish Jail. Sources with direct knowledge of the investigation says that the inmates allegedly used electric hair clippers to tear through the wall and were provided rags to cover the barbed wire while climbing over the fence. Sources also say that additional charges for this assistance are expected. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK.
This is the Bloomberg Black Business Beat.
I think that what happens between now and 2030, between the pandemic and George Floyd's murder, this 10-year period will decide the quality of life for the next 100 years.
That's John Hope Bryant, founder, chairman, and CEO of Operation Hope, speaking with Bloomberg back in 2023. We're another year removed from George Floyd's murder in 2020, a moment that, in Bryant's words, started the clock ticking on how to build a more equitable future. His organization, Operation Hope, is doing its part to make the future a bit brighter by giving people in underserved communities the tools and education they need to manage their money.
What's banking? A trust business. It's about belief. It's about confidence. Credit comes from the Latin word credito, which is credibility. Capital comes from the Latin word capitas, knowledge in the head. None of this is about money. It's about how you feel.
Operation Hope and organizations like it are pushing to create opportunities for more people and pushing other companies to find ways to do the same. I'm Bloomberg's Justin Milliner on the Black Business Beat.
Now more than ever, Lowe's knows you don't just want a low price, you want the lowest price. And with our lowest price guarantee, you can count on us for competitive prices on all your home improvement projects. If you find a qualifying lower price somewhere else on the same item, we'll match it. Lowe's, we help, you save. Price match applies the same item. Current price at qualifying retailers. Exclusions and terms apply. Learn how we'll match price at Lowes.com/lowest price guarantee.
If Ernest Hemingway was alive today, would he say this to you?
Shakespeare, Mark Twain, Edgar Allan Poe, all great writers. And after reading your book, I simply must add you to the list.
Wait, you don't have a book yet. So make a free call to Page Publishing. Turn your book idea into publishing gold.
800-215-6818. 800-215-6818. That's 800-215-6818.
Didn't catch this morning's conversation? No worries. The Good Morning Show is now a podcast on all your favorite apps. Just search WBOK Media, find The Good Morning Show, and make it part of your daily routine. Download it, share it, and rate it 5 stars. Start your day with something real.
Connect with NOLA Public Schools. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X for the latest updates. Sign up for District Digest, our official newsletter where we share district achievements, celebrate student successes, and keep you informed about our vision of providing a high-quality education. And don't miss our school board meetings. Watch in person or live stream on YouTube. Stay informed, stay engaged. Visit NOLAPublicSchools.com today. Again, that's NOLAPublicSchools.com.
Hello, I'm Gary Clark. Please tune in to Dr. Clark 101, The Living Classroom, which is broadcasted weekly every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. on WBOK 1230 a.m. on your dial. And as always, it's been a pleasure.
Are you now or ever wanted to be in the biz? The NAACP Hollywood Bureau is proud to present Be in the Biz, a one-day symposium designed to share valuable information and access to some of the entertainment industry's top power brokers, writers, directors, producers, and storytellers from all forms of media. We'll learn about pitching techniques, adapting scripts to screen, collaboration between creatives and other media executives, and all the behind-the-scene roles for creative professionals. Be in the Biz is coming to New Orleans on Saturday, May 31st at Studio B. For more information and to register, visit @Hollywood Bureau on Instagram.
Welcome to Liberty Bank and Trust, where your financial journey transforms communities. Since 1972, our customized banking solutions power your dreams and fuel your community growth. Every dollar you invest with us circles back to empower more people, ensuring opportunities for generations. Join us at Liberty Bank. Together, we empower possibility. Visit libertybank.net to start banking with purpose. Liberty Bank, there's freedom here.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Monday, everybody. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt, and my co-pilot this morning is Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, New Orleans.
So if you're just joining the show, we were talking about updates and whatnot. We were specifically talking about the Entergy rolling blackout or load shedding that took place that forced over 50,000 customers to be without power, myself being one of them.
It's more than 100,000 went out.
So now it's now it's more than 100,000. But at the time when my power went out, it was, I think, 56,000 of us didn't have power at that moment. So we were talking about that, but I promised you an update on the jailbreak that took place at the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. And right now, as I was expressing to Will, there are more people who have been arrested for aiding the 10 inmates who initially escaped than there are folk who have been arrested for escaping, because as of today, there's still, 5 of them?
Yeah, five been captured,
large?
5 still at large. And some of these people arrested have are alleged to have assisted with some of the people who are still at large.
Yeah, and so it says 3 more people have been arrested and accused of helping the inmates who escaped Orleans Parish Jail. A young lady, last name Randall, her first name I will not butcher, and Patricia Van Buren were arrested and charged with accessory after the fact. Both women are being held on $1 million bond. Lanika Van Buren, who shares the same last name as escapee Linton Van Buren, was arrested Sunday and charged with violation of probation. 9 other people have been arrested, accused of helping the inmates who escaped. So far, 5 are back in custody and 5 remain at large. But they made a mention that Lanika's last name is the same as one of the escapees, but so is Miss Patricia. So I don't know if that's a mom and a sister, but one of the ladies, 2 of the 3 ladies who they've since arrested, well, one of them is Patricia Van Buren and the other one is Lanika Van Buren. But the article specifically says that she shares the same last name as escapee Linton Van Buren, but so does Miss Patricia. So I don't know if Patricia and Lanika and the Van Buren escapee are related altogether, or if it's just Lanika and the escapee. But Miss Patricia also shares the last name Van Buren. I'm not certain who she is in relation to the inmate, but the inmates. But 5 of them are still at large, and they've been making much of one of the young men. I just saw another story about him, heard another story on my way in, but it is the young man who is the grandson of Kim Groves, the woman who was basically executed by the direction of Lynn Davis, who is a former NOPD officer who is serving a life sentence. He was on death row, but his sentence was commuted to life in prison, which he fought against, by the way. He didn't want for it to be commuted. And so much is being made of this young man's story because he's accused of being responsible for 4 murders, but he was convicted of 2, I believe.
That's right.
At the time of the escape. And it is being said by the district attorney's office that 2 of their DAs have fled in fear that he's on the run. And so has allegedly some witnesses have fled the New Orleans area because he's still at large. Now, I don't know, or we don't know the totality of the story because I guess for safety reasons, they're not sharing much with us. It's just being alleged by the district attorney's office that this is the case. Mm-hmm. Have you heard or been witness or given any information that would substantiate that claim?
No. I mean, there are court records, and our reporters at Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, has been digging into anything else that can be recovered via public records to figure out what pieces of things might have been going on. I mean, for instance, one of the escapees asked that his girlfriend have a clean phone available. That would seem to indicate part of a plan.
Well, we knew there was a plan. What I'm specifically asking in this moment, because I find that's a big allegation to make, or that's a big thing to say that these people have fled because they're in fear of him.
Right. That's true.
So I'm just asking when we say something that big, like I want to be able to understand, like what information are they using to say that this is the reason that these people are gone, or because certainly some of these folk have had a hand in all of these because that's the district attorney's office. Yes. So why are they attributing it to just him that they're afraid of? If there are multiple people, he's not the only one that was actually had time. Am I not correct? Like he's already been like convicted of something.
Right, but if I'm not mistaken,
he's the only one that's the murder
convicted of murder? 2 murders and accused of 4 more. So
that's what I'm trying to understand.
I think, well, first of all, the DA hasn't identified for good reason who these people are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I understand that's safety. I just want to know.
Right.
Because for me, when you say things like that, like to me, my when I think about him specifically, I think about it matters not if he's dead or alive when they catch him. Because if you've been accused of 4 murders, convicted of 2, that tells me that you're extremely dangerous. That's the tone of that. And then I'm hearing people are afraid, witnesses are fleeing, DAs are fleeing. That makes you sound extremely dangerous. We don't even know if he's still in the city. So to me, the whole city should be in a state of high alert if this is what's happening. But the only time that I heard that was when I heard the update that these DAs have fled, witnesses are fleeing. That makes him extremely, that's the tone of it, right?
I think that was part of the intention of DA Jason Williams to indicate how frustrating this is to be able to prosecute someone who is dangerous, convict someone, and generally speaking, people who are convicted shouldn't be in the jail.
So that's where I was going with that. I wanted to layer it that way because if he's such the threat that now DAs are fleeing, witnesses are fleeing, he was being housed right there, literally. And so then whose responsibility it is after a conviction, after what happens next? Certainly that's not on Sheriff Susan Hudson, right? She doesn't. Right. So whose responsibility is it to ensure that once the courts do what the courts are supposed to do, the DA's done what he's supposed to do, the sheriff has done what she's supposed to do because she housed him, The courts convicted him. The DA prosecuted him, but he's still somehow housed under the care of Susan Hudson. So whose responsibility is it, and how long does it take to move a person?
Right. And that was part of DA Jason Williams' point. It was like, at some point, we've done our job, and the state is responsible for doing their
it's
job.
The state?
Yeah,
that's where we're
right.
going.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to understand, because we do a whole lot of allowing folk to come and point fingers into what they consider to be the incompetence of our leaders and our folk here. But let's use his case specifically, since so much is being made about his story, right? Everybody's talking about him as if he's you might as well say some sort of kingpin almost, because they're talking about it like it's so much fear.
Right.
But if that is the case, if there was so much fear about what he could possibly do to somebody, then why do we wait to move him to a more secure facility after he's already been charged, gone to trial, convicted, and then we just gonna move him right back into a minimum security housing unit until when? Because if not for the jailbreak, then how much longer will he have sat there with convictions?
Right. In the state, the governor is pushing back and saying it's because of slow processes in Orleans Parish courts.
Well, but we're using his story specifically. The
Right.
processes were already done.
Right.
Whose responsibility is it to retrieve their? Because now it's property, right? That's how they look at you when you're state property at that point. So who comes to collect? When everybody at the level that you're pointing a finger at has already done their job specific to this young man, then whose responsibility? That's what I want to know. Who's next in line? Who's supposed to come get him? Because if you can quietly move out 65 people, because we found that out at the meeting, then what about the folk whose cases have already been satisfied? Then how long does it take to rehouse them?
Right. Yeah. And, should the jailbreak have happened? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody is saying that. But there are layers to this. And in this particular case, you're absolutely right. Why would this man be in
because
jail?
if you know that you're facing possibly Angola,
right,
and they're leaving you here for an extended amount of time, I'm gonna be trying to work on my exit strategy as well. You're leaving me in here. I'm already convicted. I know where I'm getting ready to go. I know the chances of me escaping from that facility are slim to zero. So if I have all of this idle time waiting in this minimum security housing unit, I'm gonna look for an out. Because once they put me on the bus and they bring me up the road, I'm probably never going to come out. So to me, then who's up next? Like, who's responsible? Because I don't know how that goes. Once you're convicted and you're going, like, why do you even go back there? Like, shouldn't it already be set that you have somewhere to go up on conviction? Is that not how it goes?
And I don't have this down. I'm no legal expert. I'm not a judge. But part of the issue seems to be due process. So if somebody's convicted on a charge, but not yet convicted on another charge, then there seems to be a situation, a dilemma. Where do you hold them until the process is complete as the other cases move through the court system? And so judges, defense attorneys in particular, and judges want to make sure that those processes move and that nobody is being treated unfairly and put in prison for charges on which they have not been convicted.
But he was convicted of 2 other ones.
Exactly.
So I don't understand.
That's right.
So that's what's not making sense to me, because whether or not he is found not guilty or innocent or whatever it will be, that doesn't negate the 2 convictions he already has.
Correct.
The only thing is it will possibly, worst case scenario, add additional convictions, but he's still been convicted of those 2. So I'm specifically asking this question for a reason, since we like to point fingers and lay blame, then we just gonna spread the blame all the way around. Like we gonna all share a piece of this blame, because I want to know who's up next.
Right.
Once they've been convicted, or when this trial is happening, are you not making plans? Should there be a conviction, this is what's going to happen, or should they be found out, this is what's going to happen? Is that not happening? Like, are we allowing innocent people, like once you've been found not guilty, are we sending you back to be held until they can process you out?
Right.
Or do you just go home? You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to understand, how does that work?
Right. And we know it's a holiday. So some of you all are not at your law office or not at the court. And you know some of the answers to this. The talk line is 504
I don't know. I just want to know.
582 9422 504 582 9422. Again, 504 582 9422. It's 7:41, and you probably don't have anywhere to go.
Well, people are sleeping. If they don't have anywhere to go, it's just the folk who listen all day long who are up.
Absolutely.
But speaking of jailbreaks, there's a former Arkansas police chief who has escaped prison while serving murder and rape sentences. This is, I don't know if it's because New Orleans is dealing with their own jailbreak that now all of the jailbreak stories are somehow making it to our timelines. But in Ohio, there was a jailbreak. In Tangipahoa, the same gentleman that has broken out of that facility has broken out again. And now we have a jailbreak in Arkansas. And this guy is a former police chief. And it's so crazy because there's footage. This makes you wonder if he had help, because he was in a full law enforcement outfit, or an outfit that mimicked law enforcement, from the hat to the top to the pants. When he escaped, and he just put his hand on like a pallet of something and just start rolling it out of the facility, and that's how he got out.
Right. He's just walking out. I'm just taking
It's
care of
video right
something.
here. He has his left hand on the little pallet thing, and he's just calmly walking it through the yard so that he can escape. And it says that he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in 2017, and he was accused of shooting and killing James Appleton. Hardin worked for at least 4 separate law enforcement departments in Northwest Arkansas before the murder he is serving time for. He was also elected constable by Benton County Township 1. So this man is been in politics in more than one role, and he out here killing and raping people.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget the rape part. Oh,
Yeah,
my goodness.
it says in February 2018. Now I want to be very, very clear. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in 2017. So let's understand this part.
Pleaded guilty.
Yes. In February 2018, Rogers police used DNA evidence from a murder arrest to link Hardin to a 1997 rape of a Rogers school teacher. So he was a criminal long before he was a politician or a law enforcement officer, and he just was flying under the radar. The teacher told police she had left her classroom to use the restroom when she was approached by a man disguised with a knit stocking and sunglasses carrying a pistol. The man raped her and then quickly fled the scene. The teacher was able to give a description of the suspect, and a police sketch was made. For the next 20 years, the case was unsolved. Rogers police asked the public for help finding the suspect, and the TNT series Cold Justice Sex Crimes featured it in a 2015 episode. So in February of 2018, they connected his DNA to the evidence from a murder arrest that linked him to the 1997 rape. So, but for the fact that he killed somebody, we wouldn't know that he also had committed a violent rape years before. And all of this happened during, in the midst of, because the rape happened before he was in law enforcement. He went all of those years under the radar, and then he killed someone and got arrested for that, and they connected it to the rape case. And so, yeah, but he is now at large. He's on the run with all that police training, all that political savvy. He's out on the he's out and about. So
on the lam.
On the lam. That's what it's called. Look, y'all, we have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to hear from folk talking about the third and final small commemorative event leading up to the New Orleans Civil War reenactment for Black Civil War hero. Look, but the thing about it is, I didn't even know. See, working at the radio station, you hear all this. I didn't even know that they were talking about making this like a historical site. going on for Andre. That's interesting.
That's why you got to listen to WBOK.
That's why you got to listen to WBOK. Look, we'll be back on the other side of the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
Are you passionate about community safety and police accountability? Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police Monitor, we're here to shine a light on policing issues that matter, from real-time policing updates to in-depth interviews. Get the facts and stay informed. We're breaking down complex issues, highlighting community voices, and holding people behind the badge accountable. Join us for an informative hour every Friday at noon on WBOK. Your city, your police, your show. The Monitor's Mic.
This summer, let your child's creativity shine at Camp Art, New Orleans' most vibrant, arts-driven camp experience for kids ages 4 to 12. Hosted by Beyond Stage, Camp Art blends visual art, theater, music, dance, and creative writing with New Orleans history and culture. Plus, field trips, guest artists, and camper showcases. With full-day programming before and after care and sessions starting June 9th, it's the perfect fit for working parents. Fun, enriching, unforgettable. Register now at beyondthestagellc.com/campart and follow us on social media at Beyond the Stage LLC.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana companies through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about what the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation does, please visit www.jazzandheritage.org.
Join me, Dr. Jaquil Ross of New Schools for New Orleans for Talk That, NOLA Education. This Monday, we'll be joined by Max Day from MSNO to discuss the current legislation session bills impacting education. Be sure to tune in Monday at 12:30 p.m. on 12:30 a.m.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Back. Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer, Nyron Sanders, and my co-pilot this morning, Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, New Orleans.
Listen, if you're just joining us, we were talking about all of the updates as it relates to the jailbreak. We now know that there are more people arrested for allegedly aiding in some of the inmates escaping, whether it be putting money on apps, making phone calls, giving rides. There's a number of people who have been arrested as of today. 3 additional women have been arrested for allegedly aiding in the escape of the 10 inmates from the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, 5 of which are still at large. But right now we want to talk to you about an update to a story that we've talked about here more than once, and that is the St. George out in East Baton Rouge Parish. And if you're just now hearing about this story, St. George actually were successful in breaking off from East Baton Rouge Parish, creating their own city. Mm-hmm. I guess is what they were doing there. Now they are trying to position themselves to create an entire school district. Mm-hmm. I have an issue with it for a number of reasons. Even when you start to think about how they were able to branch themselves off to be their own city, they took a lot of the the resources and funding from the East Baton Rouge Parish itself. The way the lines
In
were
the city of
drawn,
Baton Rouge.
it cut through. It cut through, which I think dilutes political patches of communities out in Baton Rouge, specifically African American communities. And now that they've gotten their piece of the city that they want to now create a school district. And the caveat to that is they want the school district to mimic their city now. So basically what I'm hearing them say is the only people who could go into their schools in their district are the folk who live in their carved out community that they've.
Right. But some of them want their kids to continue to go to the Baton Rouge schools that are good schools, and they don't want to move them.
So it sounds like not only do you want some black folk from being able to participate in your district, you still want to participate in other folks' districts.
Yeah, they want to be grandfathered in.
They want to be grandfathered in. Okay. And so this is what we're dealing with here. The founders of the city of St. George say they created the city because they wanted to create their own school district. They could be a step closer after a bill passed the House Education Committee on Tuesday. Mayor of St. George, Dustin Yates, says that 12 years ago, he and other city leaders first asked the legislature for a school district. We were simply told that if we wanted our own school system, we had to have our own city. That's what he was told 12 years ago. So this is about how long they've been trying to do this. Ye said he is confident the school district bills will eventually pass. Two measures which both rely on each other: create a new school district and organize how the district will split from the East Baton Rouge school system operating independently. Kathleen Joshua is a parent of an East Baton Rouge student. She says the plan presented leaves the school district in a deficit without a clear plan for legacy costs. I want to make sure that our kids are in a good place in a school district that's fully supported, fully resourced, and those questions have not been answered, Joshua said. In the resolution EBR School Board passed Monday night ahead of the House Education Committee, members said the current legislation will leave EBR to pay about $359 million for teacher health insurance and retirement costs. East Baton Rouge leaders asked to split the amount. So they want to create their own stuff, but they want the school district to pay for it entirely. Somebody from the district, somebody from the school board is saying split the cost. Why we got to split it at all? If you want it, pay for it.
Right.
If you want it, pay for it.
Well, I mean, this very much feels to me like you want to have your part of the house.
That nobody else can come in, but you can wander around in the other parts of the house.
You decide when the door opens and closes, who uses the bathroom, whether anybody comes to visit you or not, and you also want food served from someplace else, and you want the education of your kids in that room, and you want somebody else to pay for it in the other parts of the house.
But even when you have your children in the other parts of the house, you want them in the plush parts of the house. You don't want to deal with the whole parish. You just want them to go to the corner that's nice and tucked off for you. That's what it sounds like to me. And the crazy thing is, it goes on to say St. George leaders say they want to create their district like Baker, Central, and Zachary did. But a school board member says St. George is not in the same place. They said the biggest difference is the size. If you add all those cities together, they still won't equal the size of St. George. When you look at St. George, it is the 5th largest city in Louisiana. The 5th largest city in Louisiana is one that they just made a year ago. That's a major fiscal impact on the East Baton Rouge school system. And I know they know that. What I'm hearing them say is they don't care about the children who are going to be left behind with a lack of resources. They just want to be able to pull what they want to have for their children. And some of them still want their children to benefit from the little bit of good that they leave behind in the East Baton Rouge school system.
Because the money has to come from somewhere.
This sounds like a whole nother charter experiment that's about to happen. But the difference is they took, I ain't going to say the difference because they took our money too. Fired our teachers, and pretended there was a teacher shortage, brought in their own folk, less qualified, less experienced, more money, and our kids still right now today can't read on a greater level than they couldn't read when you took it over. But That's a whole nother conversation. But I think it's audacity is the word of the day for St. George, because you have to have a whole bunch of audacity to carve out a city for yourself and then strip the system you leave behind of its resources to build you a school district that you want to be able to dictate who can come to, while you still benefit from y'all children going to the schools that you desire in East Baton Rouge Parish. You can't make this stuff up. Good morning, Rev. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The real deal is they don't want to pay for the school system they want.
Right.
What they want to do is say that, okay, we're going to take what resources from East Baton Rouge, who's supposed to have this terrible school system, right?
Yep.
And we're going to bring those resources, because now the President of the United States says we're going to take federal resources and put it in the hands of the governor. And the governor then and his crew will determine who gets money. So how then does they not have to be taxed the way New Orleans is taxed to pay for the school system that other people can control? If we don't get an understanding and see where this thing is really going and try to put a stop to it, then anybody can break off their own little section, says that, oh, this is going to be ours and we're going to have other people pay for it. That's where we really are. These people are not here to help anybody but themselves. And again, they want to take your dollars, your money, and say this is what they're going to do with it for the education of their children. So how is it then, if St. George can do it, who else can do it? How many will break away and create their own little city and then say that other people should pay for their system? Y'all have a good morning.
Thank you, Rev.
Right.
And here's the thing, Rev, of Edmonds' bill, because that's the person whose bill this is. It says one will set details of the school district. The other will be a separate proposed constitutional amendment to ensure access to the state per pupil funding for public schools. So not only do you want to, not only have you figured out a way to separate yourself as a city, now you want a school district that mirrors your city. So that says whoever's in the city, that's the only people who have access to your school. But then you want access to the state per pupil funding.
Right.
That the actual East Baton Rouge school district relies on for to take care of their per pupil funding. That's what the MFP dollars. That's what that is. Mayor Yates said the school discontent started the process that led to the city of St. George, and it continues to be a flashpoint since he took office last year. Now, you know what I find so funny about that? We allow these people to talk about how much of a discontent it is with the school district that they govern. Why that's like right here in the city of New Orleans. We allowed them to tell us about they're doing X, Y, and Z because the school system is so bad, but you govern it though. It's yours. It's your baby. So you have figured out you are so much discontentment with it, but you want to leave the vast majority of the children in there to suffer, but you want to pillage and take y'all kids out and create a separate utopia for your kids, but you're going to leave the trash to the other kids, because if you're not happy with it, then it shouldn't be good enough for anybody's kid. But your solution is to starve what you already think is a bad school system, to additionally starve it of funding and resources and leave it to the undesirable children, because that's what y'all think of them.
Right. Yep.
This is so much racism. It don't even make no sense to me. That's how it feels to me. It sounds very, very 1940s to me. Y'all go over there. We don't want y'all over here poisoning our water, poisoning our air, sitting next to our children. We don't want that. But see, they can't say that part out loud. So what they're going to say is, we just want a school system for our city, like every other city has for their city. That's what you're saying. You know,
Yeah.
But if you want to pay for it, like if you have that much, you know, you're that serious about it, and you've carved out all of this of affluence, you know, to further dilapidate a system, then pay for it. Why you need us to pay for it? Why our tax dollars have to pay for it that fund the East Baton Rouge school district that you were once a part of? You would have had access to this funding if you'd have left it alone. But no, You carved it out, so why do we have to pay for you, for you to have a school, not only a city, but a school, because we pay for the city too. The tax base out there paid for the city too. So now you want them to pay for your school district.
And the school district is expensive. and it's expensive in part because we're educating our kids, educating our future. And this would be a significant move that would reduce the amount of funding and resources available for kids across the parish. And it seems to be another step with taking resources away, in particular, from the city of Baton Rouge. So they've created the city. They've got their own elected officials. They want their own school district. So they're going to want their own fire department, their own police department. All of that costs money. And where is that going to come from? Are y'all in St. George going to pay for all that? You decided that you wanted to be separate. Do you want to pay for it? Do you want to pay for it?
Because you could do what you want. Pay for it.
Yeah.
Why do you get to do what you want and other kids suffer because of it, right? That's the only thing that I'm saying. We have to go to break. It goes so fast. It goes so fast. Look, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we'll hear from cultural historian Sanai Samaje from the Reclaiming Legacy Project and Marquette Milton, historic site entrepreneur, talking about the third and final small commemorative event leading up to New Orleans Civil War reenactment right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
WBOK New Orleans, home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans. New Schools for New Orleans is committed to celebrating the hardworking teachers of New Orleans. Thank you to all the educators who came out to the 4th annual NOLA Teacher Fest at Champion Square. We had over 2,000 attendees. Special thank you to our sponsors, Allstate Sugar Bowl, Entergy New Orleans, Raising Cane's, Align Ed New Orleans, Agenda for Children, and Ochsner Children's for their commitment and support. Teachers and school leaders, enjoy the summer break.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. Today marks 5 years since Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd. The former police officer was charged with second-degree murder and sentenced to a little more than 22 years in prison. 5 years after Floyd's death, we're hearing talks that President Trump plans to pardon Derek Chauvin. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara addressed the speculations.
There is absolutely no credible information we have to suggest that's going to happen.
D'Angelo fans hoping to catch him at the annual Roots Picnic next weekend are out of luck. The R&B artist dropped out of the festival due to, quote, longer than expected surgical recovery, end quote. Maxwell will replace D'Angelo at the Roots Picnic at the Man in Philadelphia. And today, actress Octavia Spencer is 53 years old. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Good morning. Wake up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Hey, everybody, it's Graylin Bryant Banks.
And Kimber White Dupree.
From the front porch, y'all. You know how we do. Every Monday is Moving Monday.
And Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday.
And y'all know we have nothing but bad cheering coming through here on Wednesday.
But stick with us. On Thursday, we travel.
That's right. And Friday's Free Your Mind Friday, so get your brass up.
Something on your mind? Want to get it off your chest?
Holla at your people. WBOK 1230 AM, the station you listen to
all day long.
Norman Robinson is back.
Can you hear me now?
And he's taking no prisoners.
Can you hear me now?
Each weekday, Norman Robinson brings you commentary with Off the Top.
The incident was shocking, disturbing, disgusting, disappointing, and sad.
Each weekday, Off the Top with Norman Robinson is heard exclusively right here.
It's Off the Top with Norman Robinson on WBOK 1230 AM.
Plan on flying? In order to board domestic flights, your driver's license or state-issued ID must be a real ID. Learn how to get your real ID today at tsa.gov/real ID or visit your local DMV.
Back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer, Naren Sanders, and my co-pilot this morning, Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, New Orleans.
Right now, we're getting ready to jump into conversation with the cultural historian, Sanai Samaje from the Reclaiming Legacy Project, and Marquette Milton, who just got here last night from D.C. He's a historic site interpreter. Here talking about the third and final small commemorative event leading up to the New Orleans Civil War reenactment for Black Civil War hero Andre Caillou. Welcome to the Good Morning Show, everybody.
Thank you for having us again.
How you doing?
I am good.
It's good to see you again, but we're going to start with your guests because you just got in last night?
That's right.
How was the flight?
Oh, smooth.
Smooth?
Yep.
You weren't wearing your
your
regalia here.
But sometimes I travel with it.
So how long have you been doing the historic site interpretations?
I've been doing it for 15 years, straight after high school. I felt like I was lied to my whole life about my history. I didn't know 200,000 black men volunteered by answer a government's cry for help. And they turned the tide of the war and won the war. And I asked myself, why isn't that taught in school? So I decided to do this full time. Is to have folks come to our museum. Right now, our museum is closed under construction right now, but we will reopen in July, 18th and the 19th. But I meet people all over the world and tell this #1 American's best kept secret.
So you believe? So that's what you believe? It's America's best kept secret?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I think. And what do you think about this? This refusal for America to tell the truth about its history. Like, how do you feel about that, knowing what you know now as opposed to what you knew then? Because you say you felt like you were lied to your whole.
Oh yeah.
Coming up in schools. How do you feel about that now?
Well, I feel that I have. It was meant for me to know what I know now. I wish I would have known back then, but it definitely made a difference of knowing the truth about yourself. You feel power.
Yeah.
You feel grounded. Especially with your ancestors.
And stuff started making sense, right?
That's right. Everything, like once you start knowing the truth, everything started to make sense.
Yeah. And what about you, Sanai? Like, how important is this work for you, and how important is it to not only reenact certain parts of our history, but just for our histories to be told and passed down? Because we often say a lot of the times our history died with the authors of it, or it dies from us not being able to inform our children of how this actually happened, and we leave it to America to tell our stories.
Right. It's the history is there. It's just hiding in plain sight. Mm-hmm. It is not even hidden history. It's suppressed history. Mm-hmm. And we keep seeing that with every iteration, of CRT or all of these things. It's just trying to suppress our history. I think there's a real feeling of threat that if we know our history, then there's going to be some type of backlash or outrage or all these kinds of things or whatever. So it's like people just don't want to acknowledge how bad their ancestors was. I mean, point blank, that's what that is, right? It's not wanting to acknowledge, because if you acknowledge, then you have to make amends. And that's the sticking point in America, and has always been the sticking point. We don't want to make amends, right? We don't want to do right by people that we did wrong. So the thing to do is to keep oppressing those people. But the tides will change, because there will never be a oppressor all the time. Everything always comes back around, right? So the history is here. The reason that this project is called the Reclaiming Legacy Project is because we're reclaiming the legacy. We're not unearthing it. We are reclaiming it. He already earned it. Right? Andre Caillou already earned this history. And so we're reclaiming it. And by the reclaiming of Andre Caillou's, we'll also be reclaiming the 27,000 black men from Louisiana who fought, which in the Union War was the largest amount of people from one place came from Louisiana, right? There's no acknowledgement of the work that they did. And then by reclaiming his and reclaiming them, we reclaim the legacies of all those people who are buried. There's a mass grave at Port Hudson of people who didn't have a ring on to be identified, because that's the only reason why Andre Caillou had a funeral. He had a Mason ring on his finger, and because of that, they were able to identify and bring him home. Everyone else is just buried in a mass grave up there. And it looks like the Confederates' last stand. It doesn't actually look like a Union One site. So in the reclaiming of Caillou, we reclaim those 27,000, we reclaim those people at Port Hudson, and we reclaim the histories of the 200,000 black men throughout the country who fought in the Union War for our freedom. And I think that that is really important, because we don't ever actually talk about them. We'll talk about the war itself, right? It was a war, to keep slavery and so on and so forth, and freedom and what have you, but we don't actually, outside of glory, we don't actually tell the stories of these men and who they were in life, right? Andre Caillou, he was a badass. This guy, he was enslaved, he bought his own freedom, became a wealthy cigar maker, and then went back and bought his mama's freedom. Like, that is some real, dedication to being free, right? And did so much for the citizens of New Orleans that it just is crazy to me that people don't know who he is. And even people here, like our own people here, don't know who our own heroes are. So we have to start unearthing these things. I mean, collectively throughout history, the one thing that has always proved true in terms of a fight against tyranny is art and history, right? So this project is a cross-section of those things.
So why do you think it's been, all these years that very few people knew the name Andre Caillou, and how much progress do you think you've been making?
I think actually this is our third year of small things. The first year, literally, if you Googled Andre Caillou, there are a few things that came up.
Right.
Now, if you Google Andre Caillou, a whole lot more comes up. So I don't know if it's because of this, but the name is getting in people's mouths, getting people's...
Right.
So I think it does have an impact. And certainly come next May, when we do the actual official American reenactment of this funeral, this historic funeral procession, it's going to be on a national level.
And how much has the Andre Caillou Center helped as a part of getting that name out there?
So in my former work with Olympic Community Development, I actually named that building for Caillou, but I did that because of the work that the historic Bayou Road businesses were already doing to reclaim Caillou's legacy. So they got the park renamed for him.
Right.
And I thought at the time of the changeover when Southern Rep left that this was an opportunity to support their work. And so I did that.
And we're talking about the Southern Repertory Theater that used to be based there
in that building
on Bayou
exactly.
Road, and there's a larger history of Bayou Road.
Bayou Road has my heart. So that's the thing about Bayou Road as well. So in my work there and working with that community, we kept coming up with ideas to make Bayou Road a destination location, because it's stupid that people only come here for the French Quarter when you have the oldest road. Like, New Orleans would not be where it is if Bayou Road wasn't where it is, right? And so I kept saying, you guys should do this procession. It didn't come up Bayou Road, but it came close enough, right? And I was like, you're already trying to reclaim his legacy, you should do the procession. But it's such big work that it was like, we would love to, but we can't, right? And so at one point, Lauren, who runs the Andre Caillou Center, I asked her if she wanted to do it, and she was like, I can. I'm working on launching this theater, you know, and that's a very important project that it is. So as one of the original co-founders with that, it is an extremely important place on Bayou Road. So she needs to focus on that. And I was like, all right, well, I'll focus on this, you know? And so I'm excited to have ever participated in anything doing with the Andre Caillou Center, but this has turned into a whole other thing as well. There's just so many legacies to reclaim.
Right.
So can you talk to us about the third and final small commemorative event that you have coming up? When is it? Where is it?
It is.
And does it cost?
No, it's free and open to the public. It is tomorrow at Les Musées, so that's 2336 Esplanade. It is what we are initially going to do is a combination of what we did the first 2 years. So the first year we did a procession. The second year was a candlelight visual. So it's going to start at Les Musées.
So it's like a transition. So
right.
we're going to do the funeral.
Yeah. Well, you know, just a small thing. We were going to do the candlelight visual part at the at Andre Caillou's gravesite, because he's buried at St. Louis No. 2 in Black Square. And so, but the weather, I'm not sure. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, but you know how it is here. You don't know if it's going to be at that time or not. So I'm already thinking that I might have to adjust that. And there might be a small group of us that have to go to the cemetery earlier in the day and maybe film that for the people who come in the evening, because I don't want anyone not to come because of the weather. We can always move it. Right now it's in the courtyard, but we can always move it inside if it rains. But I don't want people walking that 25 minutes in the rain.
So it's tomorrow, Les Musées. What time is it?
5:30 to 8.
5:30 to 8. And we'll get to see our guest.
Yes, he's going to speak more.
Are you excited? For your
in fact,
portion?
I want to come here more often to one day. I'm sure there's a unit in Louisiana, but most of my reenactments is on the East Coast. But I would love to one day build a unit here because New Orleans, Louisiana had the largest numbers of volunteers in the Union Army. And Captain Andre Caillou is so important because there were a lot of generals, commanders, not all of them, but a lot of them just thought that only thing we're good for is picking cotton and sugar. Captain Andre Caillou said that generally we come from a fighting race. Our fathers were brought here in captivity because we didn't hand-to-hand fight, so we wanted to fight too. And he was the first black officer is to lead black troops in battle. So it showed them that we can indeed fight. So I believe that's a story that everyone should know about him, you know, what he did, or his sacrifice.
And he will be coming back because he is going to be one of the coordinators for the reenactors. So we're looking for a partnership with the fairgrounds, because that is actually where the Native Guard practiced.
That's
to
right.
see if we can hold the practices there, obviously when they're not doing other things, but to have them on the same soil that the actual Native Guards practice on would be so meaningful and impactful. So you are going to have your regiment. There were 1,100 men in Caillou's regiment. So when they came down from the museum before, they gave us the list of those names, and we really are trying to run a campaign to get descendants from these men to participate in this reenactment. I think that would also be really meaningful. And I think it's really important to understand, like, if people are wondering why I'm not doing a battle, but I'm doing this funeral. One, it was historic. It was 20,000 people of all races and nationality against all costs. Like, people went there like they were just going to stand up for this man. That's how outstanding he was. The Father Maestri, the Catholic priest, he did his last rites under the threat of excommunication because of the second archbishop. And I think it's really important for people to understand Andre Caillou was never meant to be buried. When the Confederate side said, hey, we'll pause the war for you to claim your dead, the white Union General Nathaniel Banks said, we don't have any dead. And he let Caillou and all of those men stay on that field for 47 days in the hot Louisiana sun. That's why that there's a mass grave there. You could barely pick anybody up off the ground, right? And so this is really about humanity. When we do have the Andre Caillou Week, which will precede the actual reenactment, we're doing a symposium on Black Bodies Mattering Then and Now. right? To just really talk about that, because when asked, how did these black men fight? Nathaniel Banks was like, they fought as valiantly as anyone else. They were great. They should absolutely be used in military, so on and so forth. But then you didn't think that they were human enough to warrant being picked up and sent home to their loved ones?
Yeah, listen, it's intriguing, but we have to go. But before we go, I want you to just give our listening audience an idea of what is happening tomorrow. Give them the date, the time, and the place, and encourage them to come out and see what you have going on.
Tomorrow, May 27th, which is the actual day that Andre Caillou died. So we specifically chose that because in the future, it's always going to be the Saturday before Memorial Day. We're just doing a small commemorative. So Opera Creole will be performing an excerpt from opera that involves Andre Caillou. We'll have some other performances and speeches. Councilman Eugene Green will be there speaking on this. And it's going to be a really great time. We'll have the candlelight visual to honor Caillou. And it's a very sweet evening of just remembering a great Black Civil War hero.
And that happens where and what time?
Tomorrow from 5:30 to 8 at Les Musées, Free People of Color Museum on Esplanade at 2336 Esplanade.
Well, we want to thank our cultural historian, Ms. Sanai Samaje from the Reclaiming Legacy Project, and our guest, Marquette Milton, all the way from D.C. He's a historic site interpreter, talking about the third and final small commemorative of it leading up to New Orleans Civil War reenactment for Black Civil War hero Andre Caillou. That is happening tomorrow. Les Musées, 5:30.
5:30 to 8.
Be there. Listen, we have to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to jump into the news as only Will and I know how. This is WBOK 1230 a.m. with New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
That's right. It's party time each and every Sunday night at 7 p.m. on WBOK. It's the Throwback Throwdown with DJ Wick as he brings you the best in old school from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and the early 2Ks. Plus, the party goes to another level at 9 p.m. with the Throwback Throwdown Party Mix to round out the night. It's the Throwback Throwdown Sunday nights at 7 p.m. on WBOK and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Good morning. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. Yesterday, a massive, sweeping power outage left thousands of you in the dark from the South Shore to the North Shore. The outages impacted thousands during the Memorial Day holiday weekend and left many in the heat. More than 100,000 Cleco and Entergy customers were impacted. In a statement, Entergy says the wide threat outages were caused by what's called a load shed, which means it was a last resort forced by the transmission center that manages the power grid in order to prevent a more extensive power outage that could affect its reliability. The outages lasted at least 5 to 6 hours. This morning, there are 3 more people waking up behind bars, accused of helping the inmates who escaped from the Orleans Parish Jail 11 days ago. Jail records showed the weekend arrests of 27-year-old Tyshia Randolph and 18-year-old Patricia Van Buren, both charged with accessory after the fact and both being held on a $1 million bond. Lanika Van Buren, who shares the same last name as escapee Linton Van Buren, was arrested on Sunday and charged with violation of probation. 9 others have been arrested, accused of helping the men who broke out. And we're learning more on exactly how the 10 inmates escaped the Orleans Parish Jail. Sources with direct knowledge of the investigation says that the inmates allegedly used electric hair clippers to tear through the wall and were provided rags to cover the barbed wire while climbing over the fence. Sources also say that additional charges for this assistance are expected. I'm Daryl Fortress, and that's your headlines for WBOK.
NOLA Public Schools is excited for the rest of this 24-25 school year journey with our families, watching our students dive into learning, growth, and success. As the school year continues, our dedicated educators are focused on keeping every student engaged and motivated. Let's keep embracing new challenges, celebrating achievements, and supporting each other to make the rest of this year even more impactful. Stay connected with your school and NOLA PS through our social media channels for updates and resources. We're here to help our scholars attend today, achieve tomorrow.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana communities through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation, please visit us at www.jazzandheritage.org.
Fresh produce, local flavor, and a healthy you. New Orleans East Hospital is hosting a farmers market the last Wednesday of every month from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Join us in the parking lot across from the main entrance. Support local farmers and your wellness. We'll see you there.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. Shout out to my super producer, Nara Sanders, and my co-pilot this morning, Will Sutton. Hey, Will.
Good morning, New Orleans.
If you just joined us, you missed the conversation with cultural historian Sanai Samaje from the Reclaiming Legacy Project and Marquette Milton, the historic site interpreter, talking about the third and final small commemorative event for Black Civil War hero Andre Caillou, happening tomorrow at Les Musées on Esplanade at 5:30. So if you want to come out and enjoy all of the festivities around that reenactment, it is tomorrow, Les Musées, 5:30. And shout out to Sanai Samaje for keeping that project alive and growing. But right now we're going to jump into some news, and I want to revisit a conversation that we were having here with Senator Royce Duplessis about a bill regarding old split jury verdicts in Louisiana. And we have an update on it. Will is going to give the update, but just so that you're familiar, Senate Bill 218, authored by Senator Royce Duplessis out of New Orleans, would allow people convicted by non-unanimous juries to petition for their cases to be reviewed. The Senate Committee on Judiciary B approved the proposal in a 5-1 vote, and that was as of May 1st. But now the bill has what?
Died in the Senate. It has died in the Senate. The vote was 26-9, so it was mostly a vote along party lines, with the Democrats in favor of the bill and Republicans opposed to the bill. The big opposition came from the Louisiana District Attorneys Association. They didn't think it would be practical to allow these old cases.
So the Constitution is not practical?
Right.
Because that's my question. If it's unconstitutional, you have district attorneys saying it wouldn't be practical to have this retro, because it's law now, but it's not retro. And what the senator was trying to do was to give anyone relief who had been convicted by a non-unanimous jury that we now know is deemed unconstitutional. So is the constitutional not practical?
It's in their view, it's like, well, that was then, this is now. We'll abide by this, and it's a good thing for moving forward, but we shouldn't look back. That's basically my interpretation of what they're saying.
That also could be white supremacist interpretation for why we shouldn't continue to talk about enslavement and slavery, because it's about the now, right? Because, they like to say nobody today has owned any slaves. Like, why are we still talking about that stuff? It's that sounds like what that's the kind of energy it's given. It's given. We don't need you to go back in time to try to rewrite or to undo or to course correct all of the ills of the past, because the past doesn't matter. That's what it sounds like.
Well, the DA's group compromise suggestion was that rather than do this, how about we use the same bill and modify it so that these folks can have a chance for parole, which, of course, is not the same thing.
But why does it feel like you always got to try to give somebody a bone? Like, just do right. Do the humane thing. If it's unconstitutional, then what does it matter how far back you have to go to course correct? If it's unconstitutional, that means it was wrong then. And it's wrong now, and moving forward, it will be wrong. So why is it such a hard sell for you to realize that if it's wrong, it's wrong. Wrong doesn't have an expiration date. It's wrong. And you can have an opportunity to course correct and to try to right some of these wrongs, but not if you're just going to take a hard no at it because to you it's too old or it's outdated. When it says up until 2018, Louisiana and Oregon were the only two states where defendants could be convicted if at least 10 of 12 juries found them guilty. Oregon has since course corrected. The standard goes back to the Jim Crow era law intended to nullify the voice of black jurors. As of 2020, about 80% of people incarcerated in Louisiana on split jury verdicts were black, based on a promise of justice initiative analysis. Louisiana voters approved an amendment in 2018 to do away with the split verdicts, though it did not impact persons already tried and sentenced by non-unanimous jury vote. In 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Ramos versus Louisiana, that's the Ramos verdict, that split jury convictions are unconstitutional, but justices left it up to the states to determine if the ruling would apply retroactively to older cases. This is something that I don't believe you should have done that too, because in predominantly red-facing states where Republicans rule, you're going to see this happen. In the more democratic states where the Democrats rule, you're going to see folks attempting to course correct. But I believe if it's unconstitutional, it should not have a deadline on it. It should be able to be, if it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. Was the constitutional not a factor when they were convicted? Right. Was it not? Right. So if it's unconstitutional, then how do we as human beings say, or why would the courts leave it up to the state? Why wouldn't that just be something that the Supreme Court could have done and ensured that the states followed?
And so it's dead for now, but the senator did file a motion for reconsideration, which means it could come back. And I doubt he'll bring it back without significant enough changes that there's a better chance of support. He did get the support of a unlikely person in Clay Higgins, Congressman Clay Higgins, heavy-duty MAGA Congressman Clay Higgins, which I think speaks to the point of the fairness of the bill. Because if Higgins can see that, then I think others could too. But go ahead.
I just don't understand why humanity it needs to be bipartisan. To me, humanity should be bipartisan. And I just don't it's just not resonated with me why this would be such an issue. There are currently 773 people incarcerated in Louisiana on non-unanimous jury convictions, and that's according to the Promise of Justice Initiative. But the District Attorneys Association is opposing a bill simply because it would be too complex and costly to retry people. You know what else is costly? You know what else is costly? Housing them for eternity. That's costly, don't you think? Especially when we know not all 773 of them are actually guilty of anything. It's costly to incarcerate an innocent person, or a person who did not have real due process or did not really have a fair trial. You're not going to tell me that we don't know that there are innocent people sitting in Angola Penitentiary. So what we're hearing is humanity does not rule because it's too costly to retry the people. But also Duplessis said it will allow them to petition for a retrial if a judge deems the defendant eligible. Their conviction will be voided, and a district attorney would then decide whether to re-prosecute their case or offer a plea deal or dismiss the charges.
Right.
So that's telling me that you don't even have to retry every case because you have options.
And you wouldn't retry every case because in every case, it's going to be different. You may not have the witnesses available.
So how do we know how costly it is?
Yeah, you don't really know. I mean, part of what the District Attorneys Association is pointing to is that the promise of justice numbers are wrong, and it's closer to 1,500 or 1,600 of these cases. So here's the question: whether it's 800 or 1,600.
If it's unconstitutional,
If it's unconstitutional and it's fair, and if this doesn't guarantee a retrial, then there's still flexibility.
Because that's the caveat to it. It says it will allow them to petition for a retrial. If a judge deems the defendant eligible, their conviction will be voided, and a district attorney will then decide whether to re-prosecute the case, offer a plea deal, or dismiss. It seems like there are options available to district attorneys, and it gives a lot of weight to the judges to determine if this person is even eligible for this. But for the bill to die, it says we don't even get an opportunity at reprieve. You're just stuck.
So my question to the DAs are, why wouldn't you want the opportunity for consideration?
Yeah.
Why, I mean, and then say, I would hope this wouldn't happen, but then say 95% of these aren't worth reconsidering. Okay,
I mean, but at least you've given it an opportunity.
Yeah, right. And you've done some work to evaluate it. And then, what about those 5%? Okay, how about those 5% get processed and get a retrial? And then that still doesn't guarantee that the verdict would be overturned.
It says striking testimony for the bill came from Herman Evans, who was convicted in 1980 on a 10-to-2 jury and spent decades in Louisiana State Penitentiary for a murder he did not commit. The Promise of Justice Initiative had his conviction overturned in 2024. He went to prison in the 80s, and he didn't come out until 2024 for a crime that he did not commit.
Right.
And then now you have these sorts of people who the state is also fighting the compensation for. So you can go to jail, because there used to be like this formula where they calculate, you know, when your verdict has been overturned and you've been found innocent of charge, they compensate you for being, and it wasn't a whole bunch of money considering what you've gone through.
No.
But now they're fighting against compensating these folk for the error. So at what point is the state going to take some accountability for anything? Because it's like, yeah, you were in jail. Yeah, we made a mistake. But yeah, now we coming after the compensation that we were given to you at one time to accommodate you for the incarceration that you shouldn't have been enduring, right? Now that seems to be in peril. Now we're saying this Ramos verdict gives folk an opportunity who have been convicted by a non-unanimous jury, which is now unconstitutional, an opportunity at reprieve, and the state is saying now they don't want that either. We don't want that. It's not good because it's costly. But what's more costly than having folk live on taxpayer money for 40, 50, 60 years, especially when they're innocent of something?
I wouldn't want anybody
Which is
related
also
to
their argument for why they're killing people, right? It's costly. We don't need to keep them on death row years and years and years and years and years. Let's just hurry up and kill them, get it over with. So which is it? You know what I mean? Like, you want to use it's costly for both edges of the sword, and it don't work like that.
Right.
So you can't have it both ways.
Right.
So I don't understand why we can't consider this. Or
Well,
why this died.
obviously it was considered, but
Well, not
rejected.
seriously considered. Like, yeah,
And
along party lines too, though. That tells
Right.
you something
Well,
too.
it also says what kind of influence the Louisiana District Attorneys Association has, because they were adamantly opposed to this.
Oh, they have.
And the proposal that they had for an amendment was about parole and not reconsideration. It's 8:38, folks, and it's 504-582-9422. If you want to call in and opine about this or something else, 504-582-9422. Give us a call at the WBOK talk line.
In another case that is germane to this topic, and no pun intended, Jermaine Hudson. He's from Algiers, as am I. He was also wrongfully convicted in 1999. I know Jermaine Hudson personally. He was wrongfully convicted in 1999. I remember like it was yesterday, in New Orleans by a split jury. He spoke to the committee alongside Bobby Gumpright, that is the guy who falsely testified that at 18-year-old Jermaine Hudson robbed him. because he was on drugs, and he had to explain to his father why he came home without his money from his check because he had just been paid. Hudson spent 22 years in prison for an armed robbery that never happened. It's not like this happened to the man and he just pointed out the wrong person.
Right.
The crime never happened at all. So that makes you wonder, how can somebody be convicted of something that never took place? Because all they had was the word of an admitted drug user. He was admittedly struggling with drug addiction. And he pointed this young boy out. Jermaine got stopped, pulled over by police. He pointed this man out and said that this was the person who robbed him. And that man spent 22 years in prison for a crime that was completely made up. So at the hearing, Gump Wright wept as he spoke of Hudson's forgiveness, because Jermaine Hudson has since forgiven Bobby Gump Wright. They're actually working together. They were working together to support SB 218, which died by
26 to 9.
26 to 9 along party lines. But he said, I couldn't change the past, but I could refuse to live the lie any longer while injustice continued. Gump Wright said, Louisiana can't change the past, but Louisiana can refuse to let its injustice live on. And I think that's the perfect way to sum that up. Because in a lot of ways, the state of Louisiana is just outdated, in my opinion. It's the reason why folk from New Orleans says they're from New Orleans, not Louisiana, because it's a different kind of thought process that happens in the state as opposed to what happens in the city. Because to me, if something is unconstitutional, I can't see any legislator or anybody going against the Constitution to say it's just going to cost too much money for us to get in line with the Constitution, for us to honor the Constitution. This is feeling very Trump-like. Constitution be darned, right? That's what it's feeling like to me. Because I just don't, because if you have a real valid reason, then yeah, okay. But to say it's costly, it's also costly to have them in there every day, all day, feeding them, housing them, clothing them. Like, that's costly. So to me, I think having a look at whether it's 773 or upwards of 1,500, however many it is, to me, you, in terms of an arbitrator of law and justice, I would sleep better at night knowing we've given justice its full opportunity. And whatever that looks like. And if once we look at it, it still keeps you where you are, then that's justice, right? But if I look at it and there's even any question to your guilt, if we can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt you're guilty of this, that is the standard, right? Is it not, Will?
Well, it certainly should be. Certainly should be. And that should apply to everybody.
Yeah.
That should
retroactively or not.
To everybody.
Yeah.
If we find out that we've been operating by a flawed system and we're making corrections for moving forward, what about those of us who've been harmed by the flawed system?
Right.
That just makes sense to me.
And it don't even have to be common. It just makes sense. It don't have to be common.
So I hope enough of you all will care enough about this to look it up. It's Senate Bill 218, even though it's went down by 29 to 6. I want to, look it up and take a closer look at this. And you can even look at NOLA.com and see Megan Friedman's story about this bill and kind of the Louisiana District Attorney's role and Promise of Justice initiatives, comments about this, and certainly comments from the senator. But because he's considering bringing it back, it'd be a good time to take a look at it, become familiar with it, and watch out for any developments and let your voice be heard.
And I want to say this before we have to break. It says racism created the problem. Zach Daniels, executive director of the Louisiana District Attorneys Association, disagreed with the assessment that all non-unanimous jury convictions are unjust. He disagreed. Let's see what he's talking about. He says some jurors who don't vote for convictions do so because they actually want stronger charges. such as first-degree murder instead of second-degree murder. How could a juror want stronger charge? You charge based on the evidence and how the...
And you don't get that
What do you
option.
tell you? You get to choose what you
the
want.
case in
Doesn't
front of
make
you.
any sense. Daniel
Yeah.
said he did not offer... Clearly, he did not offer data on the frequency of such cases, but he disputed the Promise of Justice Initiative's count of people who could be entitled to new trials. He said the number is much larger than 77.3.
Right, that's what I was saying.
But
Yeah,
to me,
right.
that supports the reason why we
Right,
ought to consider.
right,
That just
right.
means more people could have been mishandled in our judicial system, whatever. But our Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie out of New Orleans rejected Daniel's argument. What about those individuals who were convicted and were innocent? The scope of work should not be an issue. The cost should not be an issue, Bowie said. If we do not afford the opportunity, we close the doors of justice that are the result of a system of racism that created this problem. That's why I love my Senator baby, because it just makes sense, right? And he's not alone, because Senator Patrick McMath, he's a Republican out of Covington, agreed with Senator Bowie. If there's just one innocent person serving time for a crime they didn't do, I don't know how you justify the rationale that because this is difficult to do, we shouldn't do it.
Right.
That's why I try to tell people it's not about Republicans and Democrats. This is about humanity. Either you believe in it or you don't. And when we are creating policy, we have to ask ourselves, does it serve the greater good? Does it serve humanity? And this is how we should legislate. But it seems more often than not in the state of Louisiana, humanity is not at the forefront of this decision making, nor is it at the forefront of votes. Because how many votes was it? 9?
29 to
21 to 9?
No. It was 26 to 9.
26 to 9.
26 to 9.
26
I think
to
I said
9.
29.
Yeah,
26
that's
to 9.
okay. 26 to 9.
Yep.
But I mean, humanity ought to reign. So shout out to Senator Royce Duplessis. Shout out to Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie for fighting hard for something that has already been deemed unconstitutional. And hopefully it can revive itself and maybe we'll get more Republican support, because we're just asking for the Constitution to be supported and for humanity to be supported. We got to go to break, but when we come back, we're going to continue to talk about it. What you got for us on the other side, Will?
Oh.
Anything jumping off the page at you? No?
There are a couple things, but I want to make sure I get this right. So rather than bring it up and then
we're going to bring it up on the other side?
I'm going to make sure.
Listen, if you want to join the conversation, number is 504-582-9422. We'll be back on the other side. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about.
All day long.
Are you passionate about community safety and police accountability? Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police Monitor, we're here to shine a light on policing issues that matter, from real-time policing updates to in-depth interviews. Get the facts and stay informed. We're breaking down complex issues, highlighting community voices, and holding people behind the badge accountable. Join us for an informative hour every Friday at noon on WBOK. Your city, your police, your show. The Monitor's Mic.
The Tuskegee Airmen Flight Academy of New Orleans is soaring into its second year and looking for Orleans Parish High School students that are interested in aviation. Applications are now being accepted at NOLARedtails.org through May 19th. Again, the website is NOLARedtails.org. The Tuskegee Airmen Flight Academy of New Orleans, where the sky is no longer the limit.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
Febreze. As a rideshare driver, I love keeping my car smelling fresh and clean. So when I'm driving, I only trust Febreze car vent clips, featuring 3 distinct intensity settings, because it's that little touch that sets me apart. I can turn the intensity down for subtle freshness, or I can turn it up for when I want lots of scent. So whether it's set to low, medium, or high, with Febreze car, I know my car's going to smell amazing. Which keeps my driver rating right where it belongs. Picking up, Oscar!
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryant Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, Wake Up. The Good Morning Show. Good morning. On WBOK.
Everybody, it's Memorial Day. I don't know what y'all are doing, but I'm going to watch some Matlock and get some rest. That's what I'm going to do. What you going to do, Will, on Memorial Day?
Well, you know, it's the Sutton 42nd anniversary weekend. So
I know.
And so
What's
that
40,
continues.
42nd. 42nd.
Yeah. So each day we've been doing something. I'm not going to go into each and everything, but there was a very, very nice dinner at Dakar-Nola, and it was incredible.
It was incredible.
And we had church fellowship time because that was something important to us. And we had coffee and reading, and we had multiple times where we were talking about us. We just made
so
time.
So this had nothing to do with 2600, right? You didn't try to infuse that into the week.
No, that was last weekend. That was last week. that was last weekend. But you asked about today. Well,
yeah.
Today is the Queen's at-home spa day.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to do those toes and do those feet.
You're going to do it.
I'm going to do it.
So this is how you stay married 42 years.
I'm going to break out the stones.
Okay.
I'm going to do some heating and
okay.
Of the water.
Okay. Okay. Of the water. Okay. Okay. I see what you did there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah, right.
Is that how you is that the key to staying married 42
It's certainly
years?
one part.
It's certainly one part.
A brother has to keep working at it.
Is it happy wife, happy life, or happy spouse, happy house? You know, because I you start saying happy spouse, happy house for the men because, they were jealous that happy wife, happy life. So
well, and I get it. But if the Queen is happy,
okay,
then that's going to make me more likely to be happy.
So what is the idea? What do you think about this 50-50 conversation that they have in Will? That men and women got to go 50-50. Do you and your wife go 50-50? Or 50-50 as they say?
Yeah, right. So this gets into a whole thing that we don't have time to go into. But let me just say that I'm a part of a spiritual gifts team, and I am an otter. That's my animal. My wife is a golden retriever, and those are different people in the sphere of spiritual gifts. So that means I'm a very gregarious, outgoing, fun-loving, kind of person. And the golden retriever is more like easygoing, with opinions, and here's where I'm going to stand up, and here's where I'm going to, you kind of see where the flow is going.
Are you going 50-50 with your wife?
Here's the thing. So from the very beginning, we agreed that we would have a marriage that allowed us to be individuals with flexibility and to have a commonality of a marriage with that third twine of God in it to keep us on our path. And so I don't consider it 50-50. I consider it on some days, sister needs 75.
That's all I wanted
sister
you to say.
Sister needs 75.
Because that's just what it is.
Because if we do 50-50 every day, that's not the same thing.
I
we
got
have
you.
ebbs and flows, and so
But it's been 42
if she
years, I'm
needs
sure.
more on a given day, I'm not going to say you got your 50. I'm going to say what you need. What you need.
Sleeping in one of the
Yeah,
offices
right.
out there.
Yeah, right.
saying that foolishness. But speaking of Love Fest, there
Yes.
seems to be some love
A
lost
little breakdown.
between Trump and Putin.
Yeah.
Trump says Putin has gone absolutely crazy after Russia attacks Ukraine. What do you make of that, Will Sutton? The president made the comments after Moscow launched the largest aerial attack of its 3-year war on Ukraine overnight.
I think Mr. 47 has been reminded over and over again that he could end this war in 24 hours once he became president. Clearly, that has not happened. Not in 24, not in 48, not in a week, not in a month, not in 3 months. And so I think he sees this as an embarrassment. An embarrassment that
Because he
this
promised something
is-
that he can't deliver.
That he couldn't deliver. And I think he thought that Putin was a different kind of friend.
Oh, no. The fact that he thought he was a friend to begin
Right.
with.
A different kind of friend that he would be able to say, come on, man, we got to do something. Let's do this. Well, this is not just a refusal to have a ceasefire. I mean, this is an
It's all-out assault.
outright
It
assault.
he says, I've always had a very good relationship with Vladimir Putin of Russia, but something has happened to him. He has gone absolutely crazy. He is needlessly killing a lot of people, and I'm not just talking about soldiers. Missiles and drones are being shot in the cities in Ukraine for no reason whatsoever. That is what Trump posted on what is now called Truth Social. And I think that's exactly what it is, Will. He's embarrassed because you thought y'all were buddies. You were presenting to the world like you had this dictator, under control, and I can go in there and end this war right now. Just elect me. And Putin said, who gonna check me, boo? Putin showing you think you're a dictator, baby, but I'm gonna show you how dictators really get down. You don't control me.
Well,
And I'm not gonna let you sell that to your country that I'm in your pocket.
Well, I would like to say this to one comment that the president said. He said, I don't know what happened to him. The answer is nothing's happened
no,
to
that's
him.
who he is.
This is what he's been doing.
Yeah.
This is what he's been
And
doing.
and it's no shock to anybody but you, obviously.
And the president didn't want to believe
that his buddy
who he was.
Was a dictator.
Yeah.
And he was sadistic. Like, let's be for real here. But let's not act like you don't try to mirror yourself after him. So you just mad because you publicly promised something and Putin publicly is showing you that your word don't hold no weight when he want to do what he want to do. And so that's that derangement syndrome. And that was on display too, Will, when he did the commencement address for the West Point graduates.
Yeah.
He went off the rails in this speech. And if y'all want to check it out, I'm certain that y'all can find it somewhere. But Trump's remarks about a trophy wife quickly went viral online, with many critics reposting the videos on X. One of the clips, the comments were shared over 1 million times. The president was referring to Levitt, best known for mass-produced homes in suburbs throughout the country. These communities became known as Levitt towns. He was talking about another person who, to me, is the spirit of Putin. That same energy. And he was talking about how he rebuilt the military, and he's literally he's grandiose in everything. He thinks he created everything. He's the architect of everything. And meanwhile, they said he didn't even shake every cadet's hand. He shook the hand of some folk and left. So it's just weird. So many journalists have had their commentary on about it. Alex Cole, an influencer on X with over 300,000 followers, wrote, "Imagine attending West Point for 4 years just to get a lecture on Trump's divorce settlements. Inspiring." That's the quote. The editor-in-chief of the Midas Touch wrote, "This is West Point's graduation, and they were the B word about Kermit the Frog's speech at Maryland. Kermit the Frog, an iconic puppet character, was the commencement speaker at the University of Maryland this week, and he made way more sense than the president of the United States." And Joe Kardusky, a liberal influencer, liberal known as JoJo from Jers, wrote, "He is such a effing disgrace." Like, people were not having this speech. But meanwhile, he wore his campaign hat, Make America Great Again hat, as he addressed all of the cadets. And like I told you before, Will, he shook a few people's hands and then he left out on the rest.
And can you imagine having your son graduate from West Point or any other school and having the commencement speaker tell them that they should watch out and avoid trophy wives? That's your advice to the graduates.
And while you currently have a trophy wife.
Like, yet another trophy wife.
Right. What is this, like number 3?
He said it doesn't work out. It's like, okay, really?
We got to go,
that's
Will.
the advice for the graduates.
We got to go, Will, but I want to just say this really quickly before we go. Travis Hunter got married.
Oh,
he got married. He got married to his girlfriend. Yeah. People are speculating that she's with child, but he got married without a prenup. Mm-hmm. He's getting ready to sign upwards of close to $50 million deal, with $30 million of it being a signing bonus.
That's some love.
He gifted her with a Mercedes-Benz at the ceremony.
Full black on black on black.
So yeah. And you know, everybody's pitching their ideas, but everybody's talking about how it went against the advice given to him by Deion Sanders. And so, you know, you love what you love. We're going to catch this call before we go. Miss Alicia, good morning. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. We got about 30 seconds. Miss
Good
Alicia,
morning.
we lost her. We lost her. But look, I was going to try to fit you in before we had to go, but y'all stay tuned. Up next for the Front Porch with Grayling and Kimber. As first, the Good Morning Show, Dr. Wyatt Will Sutton and the Naira Sanders. We going to see y'all tomorrow. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about
all day long.